Yeah, I think.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone tonight to the LMWDRegularMeeting1 regular meeting. Notice of here's hereby given the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the District to be held at 105 Fort Road, Port Isabel, Texas, on the 24th day of January 2018 at the hour of 5:30 p.m. for consideration of the business of the agenda below. This notice is posted at the office of the district on January 19th, 2018 at 2:20 p.m. in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551-041, 551-050, not less than 72 hours prior to the time of the said meeting. We do have the presence of a quorum. Today we have all 5 board members present. I mean, please have everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Carlos, you want to proceed with the invocation?
Heavenly Father, we thank you again for another day that you made for us to come in, and it's another opportunity to meet with staff and the board, Lord, making district decisions today, Lord. You give us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of each agenda item that's brought about, Lord, and that we make the best decisions that we can, Lord. That you also make us the best stewards that we can to the water district. We thank you. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. At this time, we have item number 3, invitation to the audience for public comments or discussion. Includes the board or the staff. If anyone would like to add something. Yes, sir, Mr. D. Wells?
I would like to publicly state that sometime last month I reported a water leak adjacent to my house on the island. The district responded very quickly. I got to see them in their muck and glory, if you will. They really took care of the job. What was most amazing to me is they cut the sidewalk out, set it off to the side, did the work, filled it back in, laid that concrete slab off to the side, put a barricade around. I'm thinking, well, this is going to be interesting. How long is it going to take? Today I went out there and they put the same slab back in. I couldn't even tell that it was really work done. I was impressed and appreciative how they took and saved the time and the money. I'm one of the persons that's the most critical of utilizing staff and not overutilizing staff and resources. They did a fantastic job, and I'm appreciative of it.
Thank you for your comments. It's nice to hear good things.
Yes.
Anyone else? Staff, board, anything you'd like to add? No? Okay. At this time, I would like to move up the executive session item. Would like to, where we go? Move up to item number 17, executive session permitted by the Open Meetings Act, VTCA Government Code Section 551001, et sequence under Section 551071, consultation with attorney, Section 551072, deliberations about real property. Item A, discussion on legal matters about real property concerning the following parcels of property in Cameron County for Pottery Boulevard Gravity Sewer Crossing at La Quinta. Item 1, 10 feet wide right-of-way easement, Lot 2, concerning subdivision, City South Pottery Island. Item 2, 10 feet wide right-of-way easement east of East Track 17, East Track 1617, Pottery Boulevard Beach Estate Subdivision, South Pottery Island. Item 3, 10 feet wide right-of-way easement East Track 16, East Track 1617, Pottery Boulevard State Subdivision. Item B, discuss legal matters about real property concerning parcels of property in Cameron County. 1 warranty deed for 2.2 acres tract adjacent to Port Isabel Wastewater Treatment Plant, an animal shelter on Garcia Doherty interest property, and item 2, AEP electrical easement Port Isabel Wastewater Treatment Plant. If I can I get a motion to go into executive session at 5:36 p.m. for this?
So moved.
Motion made by D. Wells, seconded by R. Wells. Are all those in favor?
Aye.
They are. At this time, we're in executive session. I kindly ask if everyone could please step out while we handle a couple of these matters that are pertinent to this evening's agenda.
Thank you.
I'd like to get a motion to come out of executive session at
So moved.
6:35 p.m.
Second.
The motion made by Mr. Houston, seconded by D. Wells. Are all those in favor?
Aye.
They are. None opposed. Thank you. Item 17A, 1, 2, and 3. There's no action at this time. Item number B, discussion on legal matters about real property concerning parcels of property in Cameron County. Item 1 is proceed as directed. Item 2, AEP electrical easement at Port Isabel wastewater treatment plant. I need a motion.
I move to approve.
Motion made by D. Wells for approval.
Second.
Seconded by R. Wells for approval. All those in favor?
Aye.
They are. Motion carries. Thank you. We are out of executive session. Yeah, we already did that already. We'll proceed with the meeting as scheduled. We are moving back to, thank you for working with us, staff and audience. At this time, we're moving back to item number 4. Consider and approve the minutes of the regular meeting on January 10th, 2018. Everyone had a chance to read those minutes, and if so, is there approval for the minutes?
Backing up.
There's a
Sorry.
motion made by R. Wells, seconded by D. Wells. Are all those in favor?
Aye.
They are. None opposed. Thank you. Motion carries.
Parliamentary procedure here, we didn't, on our B2 that we approved, there wasn't a action related to that, it was just discussion. It was only discussion related to that on our agenda.
On B2, we did approve it.
There was nothing to approve, it was just discussion on legal matters. So approval wasn't.
Say that again?
On B2,
Right.
going in, it was just discussion on legal matters related to B2 specifically.
Right.
18 does.
Consideration and action.
On any
So-
executive session.
So then, we're okay then to
Yes,
approve
okay.
B2 with,
We approved it because we're signing the request,
Right.
so we approved it.
we're all square?
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you.
good, you're good.
Thank you.
I thought we discussed it for, okay.
No, we did. No, that wasn't my point.
Moving
Thank
to
you.
item number 5, General Manager's Report, comparison report on condo versus single family.
Yes, I believe that, this report was requested a while back. And, Mr. reminded me on it, and you guys got me,
Mr. Jackson, this is just
any questions on that report? It seems like the being charged.
I'm glad you put this together, and this is sort of an interest to me, but it doesn't quite give me the answer I'm looking for. The question I'm raising is, does a single-family home in Laguna Vista, Port Isabel, wherever, $75,000 home, they got a 5/8 meter, they got a minimum charge. You've got Sapphire condominiums over here with an 8-inch meter and 100 units. And that 8-inch meter has a minimum charge. You take that minimum charge and divide it by the 100 units, I want to know what that $1 million condo is looking at for the minimum charge. If you use the water, you're going to pay for it. But the guy over in Laguna Vista, he's got a minimum charge plus usage. I want to know what the breakdown would be for that $1 million condominium.
I understand what you want.
That way,
We've had this discussion before.
I know you've had it, but I think we need to look at it again, because especially if we're looking for revenues,
Yes.
and especially if we're interested in putting everybody on an equal playing field.
Yes.
And more the latter than the former, because I don't think the guy with the $75,000 home should be paying more in a minimum charge than the guy with the $1 million condo.
Yes.
So, what you put together was basically on total usage. Actuals.
This gentleman right here can get us all of those answers.
It's got to do with rentals.
Yeah.
Look at Regency here. You know why that's $20 and the other ones are 40? Because they don't rent.
So there's people not in there using the
Just
water.
no,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
And rental people are taking 20 showers a day,
Yeah.
and over at the Regency, there may not be 20 a week taken.
Yeah. So if we look at
That's the
if we look at the minimum usage,
Just the minimum.
we can look at a level playing field of everybody.
Can we move along to, are we concluding on that? We'll move along to the next
Well,
one?
after Mr. Houston he requested some additional
Okay.
information
Is
at another time.
Yeah.
No action, just, that would be, just take note of it,
Just
that,
Right.
Yes. Thank you.
thank you.
And then, the next one that I have is as we were talking about the city of Port Isabel project building. And, they did send me believe like 2 days ago, some information on it, that they are, the total year, like fiscal year 2016 to 17. It shows where they collected so much, and then they paid back so much, and now this is, for the whole year, it looks like they told me $11,476.24 for revenue that they, stayed with, and then this, they, had to pay some, envelopes, postages, all of that, so that's not an actual total, it's just, that's what they gave me, so 11,000 is what they make in 1 year of revenue, but then they still have to pay.
They incur all the costs associated with the collection.
It's really about 8,000, cause I think he mentioned he spends about 3 getting that mail out.
I'd like to give you all some information on the other page that we discussed the first time, like $8,000 to $10,000 per year is their revenue. I have provided more information in there that, don't mind that. If you have any questions on it?
Well, I didn't see Mr. Carlos Beretta, our CPA, had
More questions and.
a long list of questions associated with that, and they were along the lines of what I was asking the last meeting. And I think at the end, and what you calculated, what your report is, that there's not much meat on the bone, in my words, if we were to take this on, and still the challenge is what is going to be required of the district, cost incurred. And I still don't, and one question I asked before, and, is how are the commingled funds going to be handled? And, that creates some problems, and I'll finish with saying that I don't feel very excited about entering into this agreement at this time based on the potential revenue to the district without knowing more details as to what it's going to cost. It's not even a break even on our end of it.
And I know Mr. Gomez provided, some more information in there on the actual responsibilities of everybody.
It says in this report, Carlos, it'll take a full-time employee.
It's
I
a
read the whole
courtesy.
thing, I read every word of it.
It was a courtesy, we looked into it,
It's
and
just-
I don't think it's gonna work in the best interest of the district, and I recommend that we just drop it and keep on to other topics focused with the district.
I'll second.
That's my, not an action, but no.
Oh, there's no action?
Discussion.
Well, I mean, let's,
That's my personal,
Let's take
as we move forward. It was a courtesy we evaluated
Mhm.
to see if it was acceptable or feasible for us to work together and extend the courtesy, and it just doesn't work at this time. And I recommend that we stay focused on district issues and matters that pertain directly to us.
I concur.
Me too.
Let's move along to item
That's all I
number.
have for
Thank you for the time and effort that everyone's put in, evaluating this and looking at it and seeing if it was something that we courteously could do to extend our fellow municipal neighbors. Item 6, District Engineer's Report, Charles.
Right. Yeah, the first item is just the annual update on water rights. Since, we got our report from the water master for December, that pretty much sums up what we did for the year. And so I just basically provided a monthly breakdown. So the total we had for the year that got charged was $5,168. And we did get 342 acre-feet of no-charge water. And so basically we're, under drought conditions, we get restricted down to 5,550. I believe I'm saying that right? No, 5,529. So, we're just, as long as there's no drought, everything's fine. And then I just really want to table in here, just projecting with our current approach is to be buying and acquiring additional surface water rights over time. And based on our current budget, that'll, if we can get a good customer to acquire those rights this fiscal year, that'll keep us on track to stay ahead of the drought conditions, including our demand. So that's really what the report is for, just to give you an update on it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Moving to 7, this is...
No.
Oh, well, yeah.
Ongoing RFQ.
Yeah, and this RFQ was just put in here, it's a draft. We're actually having it scheduled to advertise this Sunday. And it's really just to, to go through a professional services committee request, to try to get somebody procured to do the annual testing for the groundwater wells at the Monticello. And then for our sludge holding tanks under design, water plant 2, to get a geotech, firm under contract. So this RFQ advertising, we can go through a qualification-based selection process.
But you're putting both of them together with this RFQ?
Yeah, and we could award it to 2 different firms. It's just going through an advertisement, or however we can change it up. How you prefer.
My thought on that is, it's a little more pressing right now, is to get the monofil that we need our methane monitors taken care of. We need to get that up and running pretty quick. Am I correct?
Well, yeah, yeah, that's true. But really, that is really for quarterly sampling. So as far as our next...
Not as far as installing the monitors, et cetera.
Oh, well, the methane monitors is a different animal. I haven't prepared that package yet. This isn't related to the methane monitors.
It's not. It's just for just monitoring.
This is just to do our annual sampling that we need to do for monitoring requirements.
Annual sampling.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have to monitor.
Okay, then where did you advertise it into whom? You said it's going in the paper?
Yeah, how we do it.
Yeah.
So
I see in Ricky's names at the bottom of your work, so I was wondering, where are we hunting down the professionals for this?
Oh, well, I'll contact the people that historically do this work, like PSI, Robert Kistner, Ambiotech, and whoever else is out there that can perform those services. So I'll be hunting down to let them know what's out there.
Okay, I really want you to go out beyond your normal network.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, don't go just to people that sent you a turkey last Christmas.
Yep.
Okay, go on, expand out your network, please. That's what I have, my support for the purchasing agent is to expand your network. And my turkey comment is not meant to be derogatory towards you. It's my failed attempt at humor.
No, I'm laughing on your side, too.
Thank you.
Moving to item number 7, Director of Operations report.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Basically, I have a couple of items that I wanted to address and just let the board know. One of them was on the river pump station. The dredging there has been completed. It started on the 15th, where they went and looked at it, and they completed it on the 17th. And it's now at a level that we were trying to get to as far as the dredging is concerned. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Did they have any, I noticed they cleaned up that area really good, all that overgrowth that was going in. Did they have to go and ask permission from the neighbors to do that, or were they able to do it?
Yes, I believe they did get
Okay.
the permission from the neighbor, and all that sediment that was taken out is also the neighbor's going to take that.
I spoke to Noe briefly before the meeting, and I'm appreciative of the work that was done and the efforts to monitor the completeness of the job, the depth of the job, if you will. Was there any calculations of the volume taken out of there?
Yes, we
Monster Mantle?
estimated at 247 square yards. That's what we-
Square or cubic?
Cubic.
Volume.
Cubic yards.
Cubic yard. Cubic yards?
That's a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And the last time that was done, how long? It's been 5 years, roughly? How long do you think since the last time? About 5 years ago?
2010.
2010, 8 years ago? So we probably need to put that on a more, if you pick up that much, probably you need to pick it up like every 3 to 5 years. We probably should evaluate that a little closer.
Usually depends on the flow of the river,
Yeah.
monitor all that.
Yeah, that would be if the river floods.
More sediment, yeah.
When it flows too fast, we
Pushes it.
so we'll monitor that every few years. And do a report.
I think the mobilization fee or something like that is going to be pretty, to mobilize it for a half a job versus a full job. I guess we need the advice at the time of staff.
The second item I wanted to inform the board was concerning the audit, and I guess because of our persistence with the audit today, I finally got an email with the schedule on the audit report. So we'll start on the management discussion and analysis that the district has to do, and we look at completing that by middle of next week. So hopefully we can have an audit report soon after that.
So you have maybe a preliminary or something of something to bring forward by the next meeting or something?
That's what I'm hoping for, yes, sir.
In the past, we brought it to the audit committee, to review before it came to the full board.
We'll do that. We'll call the audit committee as soon as we have something more definite, and, if we can, we'll put it on the agenda.
It's right on time.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Moving to item number 8, presentation by Perkins Engineering Consultants, Inc. on odor control for wastewater utilities. Hello, and welcome.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, appreciate the chance to be here. My name is Mark Perkins. I'm with Perkins Engineering Consultants, and I'll give you a little discussion on odor control. Let's see, and Daisy, I'm sorry, is this the clicker up here? Make sure I may start with this slide here, and if I can get the animation working, and if you could roll the mouse down to the bottom, there's right about there, maybe up a little bit. There's some animation on that slide, if I can, yeah, there you go, like that. If you can, if y'all can hear me, if I stand aside over, you can see that. But this is a real-time food model we did for a larger wastewater plant up in the DFW area. This plant wasn't much larger than yours, but what that is based on some electronic instruments and weather station data. It shows how far odor plume is, different colors represent different intensities. That shows how far it goes out in different times of the day. See the little Pac-Man in the lower right side of the screen. What that's showing is wind direction and speed. And what that tells you is very low wind directions, or very low wind speed is typically when the odor goes further from the site. Again, that's a much larger plant than what you got, and this technology is probably not quite affordable with the size of plants you got, but just
Lower wind, is it?
Low wind and calm wind. Low wind and calm wind is usually when you're going to get the biggest impact off-site. It
sits on you.
Sits there and then get a low wind that goes off-site. So I guess the point to make of that animation is, to some extent, you're a slave to atmospheric conditions. You can't. I don't want to tell you you can never treat 100% of the odors all the time, but the atmospheric conditions do affect what you do. And I can go to the next. Well, go a little further up. I will say we do quite a few odor control master plans, and what we typically try to do is look at the sources of odors you got. And skip to the bottom line there. Nobody can ever afford to take care of everything. So what we try to do is identify the biggest sources, what's causing the biggest complaints, or what has the biggest impact on the neighborhood, and then see what it costs to treat each one, and then put those two together and try to identify a set of priorities for a kind of a step plan that gets you the biggest bang for your buck. I'd love to have a client that has enough money to take care of everything all at once, but hadn't found one yet. So usually it's a matter of prioritizing the sources and seeing what you can go after with the money you do have and have the biggest impact for it. We'll spend a lot of time on that. That's just kind of a list of all the different compounds that can be in the air that you can smell, and just point out that the detection threshold is the level at which you say, I smell something. The recognition threshold is where you say, aha, I know what that is. Hydrogen sulfide is the biggest offender, and you got a lot of it in your system. I was down here doing some work 10 years ago as a sub-consultant to SB consultant, so I got the opportunity to do some odor monitoring in a few of your lift stations. Just a typical plant odor survey, what we do is go around and measure emissions off different units in the treatment plant to see which ones are contributing the most. This is just a simple pie chart. This was done for the city of Wichita Falls, and showed the different treatment units in their plants and which one was producing the most, which ones are producing the most odor in that IVs. What we then did is come up with a graph like this, and it's a little hard to read, but the yellow is the percent of the total capital cost to cover and scrub every area in the plant. And that was about a $9 million capital expenditure. So he said, we're not going to lay out that much right now. But the green shows how much of that total pie piece gets taken out. And what they did, if I, let's see, is the pointer the top button? Oh, no, it turned off.
On the mouse again?
Oh, here it is, okay. What they decided to do is look at this and say, okay, 13% of the total $9 million took care of 42% of their odor. So they identified these first two pieces as their phase one project, built those, and then identified these next two steps up as phase 2 and 3 and presented that to the public as their odor control plan. The phase one project, fortunately, not fortunately for me, but fortunately for them, it eliminated enough of the complaints that they so far have, after 7 years, haven't had to proceed with the phase 2 and 3. So kind of a stepwise progression and taking care of what you can for the amount of money that gets the biggest bang for the buck is usually the approach we try to take. One topic I'd like to talk to you a little about, Mr. Ortiz was nice enough to give me a tour around the city and describe some of the complaints you're getting. One thing I think may be an issue here with your system that bears looking at is headspace pressurization in the sewer. Basically, air flows with water down the sewer headspace. In a normal open sewer, water drags it along by friction forces, and air flows at about 1/3 the velocity of the water below it. And we've got some cheesy graphics I'll show you, but you know, that was not enough to do on the PowerPoint, but somewhere I got the airflow through there. And my next graphic looks like it's kind of messed up, so you're going to have to bear with me. But I think somewhere in the translation between the flash drive and my computer, it didn't show up right. But I'll tell you the story anyway, and hopefully I can illustrate it. But if you're flowing downhill, again, that air flows in the headspace, but if it hits a dead end, if the air hits a dead end, either a sag pipe, a siphon under a canal or a lift station, if that air hits a dead end, it's going to pressurize the headspace and go upstream somewhere. And what I had shown there is typically, like at a lift station, a lot of times the air comes out the lift station, that's the downstream end. Very often what happens is that lift station gets sealed up, so the air can't come out there, so it builds up pressure in the line, and it has to come out upstream somewhere. It seeks a place to come out. And what we found through, we have differential pressure meters we put on the line. We found out sometimes that pressure can go up 4,000, 6,000 feet, easily over a mile. And that can come out either, you know, if you've got a manhole that has holes in it, or if you've got a stack at a house, it can come out upstream in neighborhoods, or in unoccupied buildings if traps aren't filled or plumbing's not done right. Sometimes you can get that odor actually inside buildings. And I've heard you've got some complaints that may point that direction, and in order to, I guess, prove or disprove that's happening, we could put some differential pressure meters upstream on some of the lines near that building and monitor ahead of time, and then monitor after. And again, my graphics, I apologize, but
Let me ask you a question. Staying with what you were just saying, from my understanding is that, you know, you're monitoring your pressure along the line, and wherever you have pressure variation, high or low, is where you're going to have potential problems. So it would be a question of determining the system as it is today. And what came to my mind was, say you had a lift station or a line that really wasn't vented, so it's going to back it upstream, and that's where you get backed up into residences or businesses because of the head pressure of the odor or the gases that build up. So what I got at what you're saying is that's part of the process to determine where your problems are. You go in there and assess the system today, see which manhole or which vent is covered up with soil and not working it, and where it's pushing it back upstream with somebody. Am I characterizing it kind of simple?
Yes, you are. And what we have typically is what's called differential pressure meter if we can find a manhole that has a pick hole or a place where we can get in, there's like a little aquarium tube that comes up to atmosphere, and you put the instrument down in the manhole, close it up, and it measures whether that headspace is under pressure or under vacuum. And
So that's kind of the start of this process. It's not a $90 million process. It's really just a system analysis.
right, yeah,
You're leading us through right now.
Yeah, it costs a few $100 a week to rent those instruments, but it's not a.
Our challenge.
I hate to quote Kinky Friedman and say how hard can it be, but it's a fairly simple.
Yeah, I got in a long ways in politics too.
Yeah, yeah, he got 12% of the vote.
Yeah, and I voted for it. But the thing is, I'm intrigued by what you're saying, because I'm processing it in kind of like my layman's terms, and my wife's saying it's backing up into my business, and why is it doing that? And so if the line is clear all the way through, but it gets into pressure of the gases to where that can, give us problems.
Yeah, if the air hits a dead end somewhere, it's going to back up, and we've measured it.
It's not necessarily a dead end, but if it's sealed, if you don't have the proper ventilation or normal ventilation along the line, it's going to take it back up, and that's what's going to create the dead end, if you will. It's just increasing the pressure back upstream.
That's correct. It's not much pressure. It's only not even a PSI. It's only like a 1/10 of an inch or 2/10 of an inch water column. It's very, very little, but that's enough.
I stopped your presentation. I'm following. Thank you.
No problem. It's a good question. And several little facts here that help. One thing that contributes, and maybe this will show up, the fact that you've got some situations where one lift station pumps to the next and pumps to the next. Each time an upstream lift station comes down, that water volume displaces air and creates pressure in the system. And I didn't really come here thinking that was an issue, but after kind of touring there, Charles, and hearing some of the complaints you got, I think that may be worth looking into. And this is another, I apologize, I can get you a cleaner copy of this, but one thing we do to test for this is some fan testing. If you put a fan downstream either on the lift station or at a manhole somewhere along the way, you can pull out air. Usually you put in the differential pressure meters for a day or 2 days and see if you're really pressurized or not. But then you can put in a fan and see how much air you need to pull to maintain a continuous vacuum in that headspace. And if you got that continuous vacuum, the air's not going to go backwards into the building. It's going to be pulled down. You're not so fast that people get sucked into the vent pipes, but it's a continuous and I guess a provable vacuum that so you can prove you're not creating those odors in the buildings or upstream.
Can I ask staff, do we know of any instances, I'm sure there probably have been some, of sewer gases getting past the P-traps in the modern construction?
Do you want to answer that one, or?
Well, yeah, there's been some instances. Sometimes the vent pipe in the building, the plumber didn't seal it correctly, and that's where you have the gas escape.
But that's an issue of the installation of the plumbing. So had it been done correctly, it should not have been
Right.
all right.
But you're referring to increased pressure from the district system.
Yeah. I have never heard of pressure problems like that causing any types of problems within our system with odors inside homes and getting past P-traps.
Well, what I've seen is that we're always trying to make sure that the lift stations are really covered, where there's nothing going to escape. So now we know that that's happening, because it's going to go out somewhere because of the pressure, right?
Yeah,
so
you could have that
what I've
create a problem.
been seeing is that a lot of these old condominiums that are high-risers, 15 floors up or 10, they're having breaks inside, internal on the walls, way up at the 15th floor. They're having problems. I believe, like right now at the Sunset condominiums, they're having at the 15th floor the water problem. So it looks like the pipes are getting
disconnected or broken or.
But
cracked.
again, that's their problem.
Yeah,
It's not, nothing that this district has caused, it's problems with age, construction.
The lines aren't overpressurized, is what you're,
Yeah.
is that what you're trying
Yeah.
to go at? The
Yeah.
lines aren't overpressurized.
Are we putting too much pressure through the lines that it's coming back up the
And-
water column and?
And that's what he's discussing now, is just, we messed up your presentation. In the beginning of this, we analyze your input side of it and through your lift stations to see, in back pressure, my term, is gonna take and create problems throughout the system. And that's what you would be taking and analyzing, would be determining as one part of your hijack presentation.
I've been more hijacked than this one, so that's a good question. You know, and I guess to respond to your question, where we've seen that happen before usually is either bad or improperly installed plumbing, which you're right, is not your problem at this level, but also units that are unoccupied where the traps aren't full, it's evaporated out.
They dry out.
Yeah,
And
right.
that sometimes is a real problem, and
The other problem we really have here is peak flow at times. Our system, gets really taxed as far as the volume, so that's got to be putting a real problem, back pressure on our system.
It could be. Doing that testing could show, basically show whether you're putting enough pressure up there that it could be a problem,
So,
or might just put it to rest and say you're not.
For the benefit of our accuracy in our local reporter, that our lift stations could be a culprit for our odor issue, and had we been able to pass our bond election and done a rehab of our lift stations, we would have been much better off for the district if we'd have been able to do that. Would that be a fair assessment if we had properly flowing lift stations? Properly
I think so.
functioning.
That would probably mean a continuous amount of air being pulled out of the lift stations, possibly mechanically and exhausted there, or at a point
So
where
lift stations are a culprit, and the more they're in good condition, the better off the district gets.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'd say odor and corrosion go together. So this is fantastic. One way you can test this is a couple of pictures of where we've done some of this fan testing before, and it can be simple, where you just basically some small fans that blow a fairly small amount out of it. These were done in manholes rather than lift stations. And this one here, to just give legitimacy to it, there's a golf course in the background, so most sewers have to go through golf courses. But and one other bigger one, this was done in the city of Austin, and they're much more sensitive environmentally. They wanted all the air scrubbed during the fan test, so we had to bring in a big trailer and scrub the air. But what this particular study showed, Austin was having complaints in neighborhoods upstream, and we measured pressure in the headspace. This was measured about 800 or 900 feet upstream, and that red line is zero pressure, but it showed that headspace pressure was pressurized continuously, almost continuously. And then once the fan was turned on downstream, we were able to drop that, different fan speeds, dropped it kind of in a stair step until we reached a point here where we weren't really gaining much, so we identified an airflow that would maintain the vacuum. So pretty quickly, there are a lot of different odor control measures you can take at lift stations. Some of your lift stations further upstream in the system where you don't have a lot of airflow and fairly fresh wastewater, an inexpensive carbon unit like this may be plenty. Some of the ones downstream, you may need more effective treatment. And there's chemical feed options that don't cost a lot in capital, but they can eat up a lot of your O&M budget. So,
Chemical feed being what? Our degrease?
Degrease is one. There's ferric chloride, some others that can cause some precipitation, which I probably wouldn't recommend for you because you've got a lot of times where your water just sits still in some of these lines and you get a lot of settling.
And would that auto feed be correlated with the flow? The auto feed?
For some of your lift stations, I would probably suggest they do if chemicals turn out to be good.
Well, right now they're going out with a bucket and pouring it in. I'm just thinking that the auto feed might be practical if it's correlated with the line flow.
It's probably a good idea to do that, but just to say, the automation brings a cost with it. Instruments to do that have to be maintained. So 'cause you really need to kind of look at the economics of it. But auto feeds, you know, ideally in a perfect world, that's the best way to do it. I'll try to kind of get to the point here. We do some dispersion modeling, especially on bigger plants. I don't think that's really warranted here, but one thing this demonstrates, if you kind of get through the weeds quickly, this was a plant for the city of Garland, and did a lot of sludge improvements, and actually put in about $6 or $7 million worth of odor control. But one thing we looked at is how high the discharge stack should be off some of the scrubbers. And the story this told, the green and yellow and blue lines here were for 10, 20, and 30-foot stack heights. And that shows how far out. One incident of 3 pollutions of threshold, or 3 times what a normal person can smell for a 15-minute period once a year. So I'm kind of trying to condense a whole lot into a short story. But what we discovered is, in the purple, if you go up to a 40-foot stack height, we only get that one 15-minute incident a year on the ground in those 3 smaller places. And if you go up 50 foot, you can see that red circle there and a couple of red circles in the plant. So bottom line, what that story tells is taller stack heights get you better dispersion and a lot fewer areas that can complain. So we've seen some areas that have built architectural features around tall stacks, or another option you've got is fans like this that you've seen on some industrial facilities. They discharge air at a high velocity and then induce air from around there, cleaner air from around, so they dilute the air about 5 to 1, discharge it up, so you achieve about a 50-foot stack height and get that dispersion without necessarily building a 50-foot stack. So, you know, I'll just go through quickly. There's several technologies out there for covering and scrubbing, but I think from what I've heard, some of your problem areas just up the road from here, feeding the plant here close by, and then the plant at the south end of the island, the station 19, I think you have the number right, it has a possibility of creating some headspace pressurization. So I'd probably suggest focusing on those, and if you know of other problem areas that have created complaints, or where residents are saying, we've got a problem here you need to solve, instead of doing a shotgun approach and trying to take every lift station and every plant under study, I'd probably focus on the ones that you consider.
We had done that, the staff had done that in our assessment of the needs for the bond that failed again.
Well, there was no odor control.
No, but rehab of the lift stations would have been hand in hand with facilitating odor control.
That's all slides I have, but
Thank you.
I know that's brief. I'd love to talk for 3 hours about this, but I suspect that kind of
Where are we going next with this is I guess, what's next?
He's gonna be presenting this in.
Oh, well, I mean, we're going to the conference to get more technical knowledge
Yes,
of
that's right.
approaches we can take.
Right.
He's gonna be one of the presenters up there.
Yeah, I'm on the conference planning committee, and actually.
We're waiting until after March to bring something, what we plan to do,
Just learn more.
learn more and how to solve our problems. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I can follow your
Well,
direction of how quickly.
to bring in recommendations of how to proceed, I think it's consensus that we want to take and address odor control within the system. So gather more information at the conference you're going to, and then bring back recommendations to us, and then, hopefully by that time, the persons going to the conference will have a game plan on the steps to start with. That's my simple view.
well said.
And then we can RFQ it. Bid it out. Thank
you for your
you.
time. Thank you for your
Thank you.
presentation.
Appreciate the opportunity to be here. Sorry, I got a couple of the slides a little messed up, but I can give copies to you if you'd like to see them.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Item number 9, presentation by Wilden Financial Services, Dan Jackson, on Laguna Monterey Water District water and wastewater rate study. If I may ask Economist.com is no more, or what?
Economist.com was acquired by Willdan in 2015, so that was actually part of my introductory slide.
Okay, excuse me. I've known you for a while, but I always remember Economist.com. I always liked that.
Yeah, I did too, and so did they. They liked it a lot, apparently.
Good.
But I do appreciate the chance to be here. My name is Dan Jackson. I'm Vice President of Willdan Financial Services. As the chairman said, it's formerly Economist.com. I really appreciate the chance to be here to talk to you once again about undertaking a long-term water and wastewater rate study. I've got a brief presentation where I want to talk a little bit about the rate study process, but what I really want to emphasize is this. A rate study is a lot more than just a document. It's a lot more than just a written report, and it's a lot more than just a series of recommendations for rate increases. In fact, some rate studies don't even result in rate increases. They result in rate restructuring. The thing to keep in mind is that a rate study is a process. It is a process by which the decisions you make as a board are implemented in financial terms. I mean, your policy decisions with regards to how you spend your capital assets, how you want to charge certain customer classes, all of those are elements that go into a financial plan that is part of a rate study. In other words, all we're trying to do is make what you want to be a reality, and that's what a rate study does. So, as I said, I want to start this presentation out by talking just a little bit about Economist.com. I founded Economist.com with my closest friend in 1997. It grew to a relatively large organization before we were bought out by Willdan in 2015. You can see all the little dots there, which are all of the client cities that we work with, but the thing I really want to emphasize is that the very first client I had as Economist.com was Laguna Madre Water District. So all those dots on that presentation right there, they all started in this boardroom right now. So I really appreciate the chance to be back here, and this client will always be a special one as far as I'm concerned. This is a list of our Texas clients. We work for large Texas cities, medium Texas cities. We work for small water districts. But you know what? All of them are struggling with the same issue. The issue is that the cost of water is going up. It is becoming more expensive in the 21st century. Treated water especially. And it's becoming more scarce too. The question now becomes, how do we manage these costs in a way that gets us the revenue we need to provide a continued high quality of service, while at the same time minimizing the impact on our ratepayers? Because nobody wants to pay more for anything, at any time, for any reason. And so, if they do pay more, they have to understand what they're getting in return. One of the things they're getting is a good quality of water service, and that's something that really can't be overemphasized. But like I said, I wish there was a magic bullet. I know that talking about rates is never an easy thing, because whenever you talk about rates, people think automatically that your rates are going up, and many times they are. But they have to understand the reasons, and many of them aren't the fault of the district itself. Just a little bit of background on what we've done. I've been coming here for, I think, 25 years now. This is a list of the studies that we did since we founded Economist.com. We've done several rate studies for the district. We've done TAP studies. I know this district very, very well. I think I've probably been to this island 200 times. I think I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but this is almost like a second home to me. So I've got the advantage of already understanding the district pretty well. So like I said at the beginning of this presentation, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the mechanics of a rate study. That's all pretty boring. I want to talk about really the larger element of it. And that is the fact that whenever you do a rate study, you have to recognize certain facts that are taking effect in the United States in the 21st century. For example, water costs are going up for everybody. There's 6 billion people on the planet today. There were 1 billion people 100 years ago, but we've got the same amount of fresh water. As areas like Dallas-Fort Worth are growing, while where I live, they're building a new lake there that's going to cost over $1 billion. All of those costs are, all of those increases mean that the average water rate across the United States is going up at 5 to 6% a year. That's more than double the rate of inflation. I mean, cost of everything goes up by 3% a year, but water costs are going up at an even greater rate. And as I said earlier, many of those reasons are for reasons that are beyond your control. You often hear ratepayers say, well, you know what, if we just managed ourselves a little bit better or cut costs or increased efficiencies, then we wouldn't have any of these rate increases. Well, I wish it were that simple, but it just isn't. Because you try to run your water operation like a business.
like any business, as costs go up, you've got no choice but to pass those costs through to your ratepayers. But the advantage you have is you're a nonprofit entity, which means that you're not in this to make money. You're just in it to cover your costs. And so that's a very important thing to keep in mind. Another thing that you need to keep in mind is the fact that many utilities love to compare their rates to neighboring communities. That's one of the first questions I get whenever I do a rate presentation. Keep this in mind. 30 to 40% of utilities in the United States right now charge rates that don't cover their costs. What that means is that just because some city has a rate that's lower than yours, it doesn't necessarily mean their costs are lower. It might mean that they've decided to subsidize their water operations through a general fund. Now, they can do that. There's nothing illegal about that. It's not necessarily good financial policy, because if you're a city and the more money you spend subsidizing your water rates, the less money you have for police and fire and streets and other important city services. Another thing to keep in mind is that the larger the city, typically the lower the rate. That's because of the concept of economies of scale. And so, you know, we have to recognize the fact that rates are just simply going up in the future. And so the process of a rate study is to manage those increases in a way that minimizes the impact on ratepayers. So, with that in mind, you know, a rate study doesn't give you one answer. There are literally 100 different rate plans that you could put in place that are going to get you the revenues that you need to run your operation. You could have high minimum charges and low volume rates. You could have low minimum charges and high volume rates, inverted blocks, declining blocks, all of that. So the question is, what's the right rate plan? The right rate plan is the plan that you decide is the right one, because different rate structures are going to impact ratepayers differently. And so the question becomes, what is the most just, reasonable, and fair plan? And that's what this study process helps us determine, because we'll provide you different alternatives, and you can look at the different alternatives and decide which one you think is the most fair. The most successful rate plan is the one that, first of all, gets you the revenue you need to meet your costs, because obviously a rate plan that doesn't get you enough money is not going to be a successful rate plan. Also, we understand, look, times are difficult for many people. Many people, even a couple of dollars more a month in water charges is going to be difficult for many people. And so we want to manage any inevitable increases in a way that minimizes the impact on them. And finally, we want the ratepayers to accept that the plan is fair and reasonable. Look, no ratepayer is ever going to come to you and say, thank you for raising my rates. Nobody's ever going to do that. But what you hope you can do is convince them that while I don't like it, I understand why it needs to be done. And I want a good running utility. I want to invest in the future. I want assets that are going to be in place for my children and my grandchildren. And that costs money. And I'm willing to pay it for the good of the community itself. So one of the things I did want to talk about, and actually this was brought up a little bit earlier, so it's very coincidental, and that is one example of the decisions you will make with regards to your rate plan. For the longest time, the district, as you know, has a policy with its condos where you charge one minimum charge by meter size, and then you charge a volumetric rate for all the volumes sold. Many communities do that. But at the same time, many communities have a policy where they charge a minimum charge for each unit, and then they charge the volume rate on top of that. So, well, the question is, which is the right one? The right one is the one that you decide is right. So, when you look at these different alternatives, you have to look at what the advantages and disadvantages of each alternative are. Let's say you were to decide to adopt a single charge by condo. What are the advantages of that? Well, the advantage of that is that it will make the charges for a condo owner more in line with a single-family home. Because right now, quite frankly, condo owners, for the most part, pay an effective rate that's probably a little less than what a residential family does because of the minimum charge. Having a minimum charge by condo takes care of that problem. It will also increase your revenue, because it's going to mean more revenue. But there are some disadvantages of that plan, and whenever you change a rate structure, you have to make sure you understand what the implications are. The disadvantage is that, first of all, you got to keep account for every condo of the number of units. Some cities that I work with actually only charge for occupied units. But the question is, do you really want to get into the business of trying to figure out who's in a condo in a given month, or do you just charge for based on all the condos? The second thing, and this is probably a more important one, is that if you implement a change like this, it's likely to implement, at least initially, it will result in a pretty large increase to those condos. They're not going to be happy about it. And they're going to let you know that they're not happy about it. And so if you do that, you have to do that with the recognition and the understanding of what you're doing and why it is fair for the community. So those are some of the issues that you look at. That's why rate studies can be interesting, and they're much more than just numbers. So just real brief, how do you do a study? The work plan is basically very simple. You initially, we meet with the staff, gather the data that we need. Believe me, staff knows exactly what I'll ask for because I've asked for it countless times before. Usually takes about 60 days to do the analysis and the model development. Then after that, we meet with the staff first to go over the preliminary results, make sure that they understand what assumptions we used and see if there's anything in that needs to be revised. After that, we do a workshop with the board, an introductory session where we go over some of the initial alternatives. It's a session where you would not be expected to make any decisions. It's just simply, these are the different alternatives we're coming up with. What do you think? Because the last thing in the world you ever want to do is present this complex rate plan to an elected body and say, okay, make a decision right now. No, obviously you're not going to want to do that. You're going to want to take a look at it and think about what the alternatives are. So that's why the first time is in more of a workshop type setting. And then finally, the board meeting and the public presentation. And I wish we could do these for free, but unfortunately we do have families to feed, so there is a price involved in doing the study. So I just want to summarize, I'm in my last chart here. When you do a rate study, when you do a rate plan, there are benefits to the community. You might think, what could possibly be the benefit of doing a plan that may or may not adjust user rates? Well, one is that you want to have a district where you want to be financially healthy. You want to be able to cover all of your costs, and the plan will do that. You want to minimize the impact on ratepayers. This plan hopefully will do that as well. Particularly, we're going to look a lot at your capital improvements and see what your capital improvement needs are. Think about this. If you have to adjust rates to fund debt or to fund capital projects, that is money that is being invested directly in your community. So yes, you're asking the ratepayers to contribute, but they're contributing to the long-term benefit of the community. It'll help you provide an acceptable quality of service. It tears me up when some of my clients just don't want to adjust rates at all, and the way they do it is they just don't spend any money on their capital improvements. What does that mean? Well, it's sort of like saying I could save $100 by not changing the oil in my car. Yeah, you can do that, but a year from now your engine is going to blow out. So sometimes you need to do those investments. And finally, as I said, financially healthy utility. You've been a financially healthy utility for most of the time I've had the privilege of working for you, and I hope that this plan will enable us to continue to do so. So I appreciate the chance to let me prattle on as long as I have, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you all have at this time.
If I could, from our prior conversations, you understand that there's a concern or a need that we've asked Mr. Galvan to come up with is the difference between single families and condominiums.
Equitability.
Yeah, equitability. Does that need to be addressed before a rate study, or could that be part of it?
I think it should be part of it, to tell you the truth, because
I
you'll have the data.
was going to add a bullet to your presentation with that.
Yeah, because the rate study will give you the data in order to make an informed decision. It'll help you decide what's the impact of making a change, how's it going to impact both an individual condo and the entire condo itself, and how will those revenues impact your ability to minimize adjustments on other ratepayers too. So I think it very much should be part of the rate study process.
Since we have a previous, where we last left off, and I think it's like 2012 or something. 2014 is where we left off. How much more do we need to add to from that, adding to that evaluation and the condo studies? I mean, we're still entitled to that full cost down at the bottom?
Well,
add to it, I'm not trying to beat you up right now.
That study
building off of that, I mean, we're not starting from scratch, I guess.
No, you're not, and that is definitely something we took into consideration when I priced out the study. I mean, look, models are built for the most part, but there's a lot of updating that needs to be done in a study like this. You've got to make sure the data's right. The capital improvement plan, will work. That's gonna take some time. The meetings, all of that. It just takes time, and unfortunately, time is what we sell. as a business. So, believe me, if I started from scratch and had never worked for here, a study like this would probably be 50 to 60,000. So it's the fact that I have the expertise that I have here, I think, that has kept the price as low as it is.
I just wanted to make sure the board knows where we're going. with all
Well, I
that.
guess part of the conversation is we'll make sure that my thought is, are we getting everything that
It takes
we think of?
us guessing what the rate should be, it puts it on a fair and equitable, and it gives you a comparison to what other communities are, and it gets the board out of the pricing, and well, I think it should be $278, and I think it should be $379. He gives you the real breakdown of what your cost and operations are, third party, and it kind of takes a lot of heat off of the board when the rates go up. And then he gives you a structure, because like I said, I've worked with him in the past, and we had stuff, and then it gives you a structured rate going forward, how often you should adjust and amend your rates, you know, on a up to a 10-year scale of where you should be, and whether you choose to adopt or not adopt those rates. He gives you the upside and the pros and the cons by not doing it.
That wasn't my question, my comment.
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying, I understand better. But my comment is, just like Mr. Houston added a bullet to your page there as something that we feel that would be applicable to our district because of the uniqueness of it with the condos, etc. So my question is there anything else that, you know, we need to take and put into the study to fit or tailor to this district?
Well,
and I don't think you have to answer that. I think it's more to the staff. If there's something that, you know, we need to get answers to. I fully support letting the professionals figure out what the rate needs to be, and, you know, apply it for everything that Mr. Freeman just said.
Well, I appreciate the vote of confidence. You know the old saying about an expert, the definition of an expert is somebody who lives at least 100 miles away. And so I qualify since I live in Dallas. So, but it is, I'll do what I can to provide you the information that you need to make the right decisions.
And I guess during our board workshop, we will, you know, have more of an opportunity to be up to speed with what's being looked at and addressed.
Absolutely.
You can apply the models to it from your background, but then at the same time, we can tailor it a little bit if needed for the uniqueness of this district.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate the chairman's comments in regards to the benefits of a rate study, because it's making me think of some things that I had not thought of before, the pros of it.
And I'd like to look at, you know, just what he started off with. You got 3 or 4%, automatically 5%. That's brought in annual increases that we have to take in account for.
Yes, but he also tells you how many 5-inch meters, how many 5/8 meters. I mean, looks at all of them, and there's so many different ways that you can charge and where you're going, whether it be condominiums. Maybe, you know, you've got these 8-inch meters, maybe they're paying too much, maybe you need to pass it down to the 5-inch meters, and it really, it gives you a big balance. I've just worked with it in the past, and it gives you a big, real scale, instead of just looking at going, you know what, we're going up 5% across the board, and that's not a fair and equitable.
No, it's not, but mine was more to think if we can anticipate that, you know, in the next 5 years, we're gonna be X amount more, that we go ahead and do it in increments instead of trying to do a 25% increase at one time.
I say we keep going with this personally.
Thank you.
I got a couple of concerns.
Yes.
The main one being that we did a rate study, and I think our chairman addressed the issue of paying full price. I mean, I don't know what we paid last time, but is there any information in that study from 2014 that is still applicable today?
There is some. The historical volume data is very good because it helps us establish trends that projects growth in the future. The budget data, I have no reason to believe your budget data is not fairly consistent today as it was 4 years ago, but I'd like to see that, to be sure.
I guess the reason I asked that is because can we look at this or approach this from the standpoint of amending the last one you did?
If it weren't 4 years old, I think that would be a potential outcome. If it were 1 or 2 years old, but we've gotten 4 years into the future now, and there have been a lot of changes over the last 4 years.
The other concern that I have is that we proceed with doing this, which I think will benefit us, but then the board not to take action on it. And I do not want to pay for another study we're going to shelve.
Yes, you have to take action, I mean,
Well, no,
don't have
we
to,
didn't.
but-
The last time we didn't, that's my point, is that this study got done last time in 2014, and the board decided to do their own thing.
We have followed some adoptions along with some of it, the rates.
Well,
have some
that's
adjustments
not what
on
I'm
it, but
talking
yes.
about. I'm talking about we adopt a study, not come up with our own study after we get the information.
Yes, follow the guidelines.
Follow through,
Yes,
in other words.
correct.
Because that's my main concern, is if we're gonna go through all this trouble, it has nothing to do with your presentation or your product, but if we're gonna follow through with this, I wanna make sure that we're all on board,
Yes.
and we're gonna apply it once we're done with it and paid for.
Yes. We can't answer that, the board has to.
Yeah.
When we do the workshops, we
Yeah,
move along.
and that was part of what I wanted to do, is I wanted to get the board together and do a workshop and look at these issues, like the odor control, like the rate study and that, and see, okay, what are our priorities, where...
Determine your costs and your needs
determine
and
what do we need
future
to,
expenses.
what do we need to move forward with, before we just say, okay, let's just do another study.
Yes.
I'd like to do that, and I do, contrary to what you mentioned, I do want to make money, because I have to pay for some of the infrastructure down the road. I have to be able to make money that I can put away in the fund, where I can then pay for that replacement 10 years from now.
Sure, that's a classic policy decision. If you decide you want to create what you call a replacement fund, where you recover a little bit of extra revenue, you put it away, kind of like a rainy day fund, certainly you can do that.
Yeah.
But the consequence is that you've got to recover the money from your ratepayers, which
Right.
means maybe a slightly higher adjustment.
Yeah.
Classic decision that a rate study is intended to implement.
Yeah. And I agree with you that we could find out that we're charging too much over here and whatnot. That's all great, but we really need to make sure that we're gonna move forward with this and actually implement the recommendations when we get done with this process. And my personal feeling is that we need to sit down in the workshop and discuss what direction we're gonna move with this, and if we're actually gonna follow through with this. And look at also at the odor control, and I mean, I don't know about that, that seems like that's way out of our pocket range, but...
His lead time is 60 days even before you get to a workshop,
Yeah,
minimum, and the odor presentation won't be done until after the 1st of April, so you're looking probably right now at about a mid-March workshop is kind of the time frame you're on.
okay.
About a mid-March to the end of March time frame. Just throwing it out there, I mean, that's how I would look at it. That's typically what we do anyways, is a spring workshop to begin with.
So what we'll do is, come back to the board and request, if we move forward on it or not.
Yeah,
And, we'll decide at that time, and, unless you all wanna have a workshop and decide on prioritizing as we did the last time.
Remember, this is not, his is not a,
No,
agenda
no.
item, it's just discussion,
Right,
so.
right. Right now, yes. But, like I said, I'll bring it back to the board and, find out.
and I guess that's my question, do we wanna talk about it again, or just put it on the agenda for next time, or are we all in agreement for...
I'd like to move forward as fast as possible with this. To me, it's a dollar waiting on a dime. We're gonna need to, I see the benefits of a rate study, and if we're putting this off, when we're talking about 6 months, we're kicking the can 6 months down. If we're gonna do a rate study, we need to go ahead and get it implemented as soon as we can. I'm presently feel comfortable with it. If we wanna bring it back as an action item the next meeting, I'd like to move forward with this, because, this is the revenue that we need to be
Let's
up
put
to
this on
speed
the
on.
next agenda item, please.
Okay.
Let's keep moving forward, it's losing interest.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Let's keep on moving, we've got item number 10, consider and remove from the table the following item table at the regular meeting on January 10th, 2018. Consider and approve abandonment of easement on 4311 Gulf Boulevard in Esperanza Street, Lot 18, Block 121, South Padre Island. Motion to take it off the table.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Avalos. Is there a
Second.
Second by D. Wells. Are all those in favor?
Aye.
They are.
Aye.
Motion off the table. Moving to item number 11. Consider and approve abandonment of easement on 4311 Gulf Boulevard in Esperanza Street, Lot 18, Block 121, South Padre Island.
I move we deny.
Motion
Second.
made by Mr. Houston for denial, second by D. Wells. Are all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
They are. None opposed. Thank you. Moving to item number 12, consider and approve raw water agreement with SPI Golf Homeowners, JV Inc.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to defer on this until April 1, maintain the 55 cents rate that we previously determined, to give some time for some further information to come forward to this board.
Motion made by Mr. Houston.
Second.
Second by...
Alex.
Alex Avalos. All those in favor?
Aye.
They are. Any opposed? None. Motion
Are we
carries.
clear on what the motion was? Maintain the current rate of 55 cents until April 1st, 2018. No other
At
day.
that time, we'll bring that back to the board. You probably need to bring it back to the board probably you should bring it back to the board a meeting before that
Sure.
expiration.
But
Don't just let it expire and then bring it to the
yeah,
board.
my comment was not for Daisy's benefit, my comment was for staff.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Moving to item number 13, consider and approve the purchase of 3 2018 model year half-ton 4x2 four-wheel drive extended cab long truck beds. They're gonna be nice before long.
Well, we advertised for 3 2017 extended cab trucks. Vendors informed that they cannot quote 2017 anymore because production of the 2017 model has expired back in September. So they sent quotes for 2018 models. Also for the trucks that the dealership has in stock, trucks are more expensive. They have more equipment. I attached a tabulation for the first and the second bid. The second bid has the lowest bid. Don Johnson has the lowest bid, but they didn't include additional equipment we request, like a toolbox, amber LED light, and running bars. We got quotes to purchase this equipment separately from this quote, and we can get this equipment for the 3 trucks almost $1,500. So the recommendation is going with Don Johnson plus include the $1,500 for the purchase of the additional equipment.
Yes, go on.
You provided us with 5 individuals that you submitted the request RFP to. 3 responded. Are those the only ones that you submitted bids to, or did you submit it to others?
I submitted to others.
Excuse me?
I submitted to others vendors.
But you didn't list them in here. You submitted to 5 with 3 responding. But you know, what effort did you expend to take and really disseminate the request for proposals for these trucks?
Can you repeat that?
Who else did you advertise to? Anybody else? You went to Garland and selected them, but did you try any other dealers here in the valley?
Oh, yes. I contact Nissan in Brownsville. I contact a different person in Gilman because the first one, he didn't reply also. And I submit this on the, what's the name of the website? Texas Purchase.
Texas Purchase? Is that a dealership, or is that like...
No, it's a website, and...
Texas Purchase, okay. How about Buyboard? Did you explore that?
And Buyboard, yes, but...
Guess what?
The truck that I found with extended cab was a smaller truck. It was not a...
Okay, you've satisfied me on my question there. My other question is here, a number of things. You requested a bid on some accessories for the trucks that are not regular dealer items, and then you presented us with an option for accessories, buying it separately. But you're submitting the bids to these people with the goodies added to it.
Yes.
That really aren't standard equipment or options, you know, specifically bed lining, running boards, amber lights for emergency lights and things like that.
Yes.
So my thinking those would be better to be it conflicts the bid as far as somebody being able to take and bid on something that they don't normally deal with in a dealership.
After installs. You're talking
Yeah,
about just doing
accessories.
buy
Accessories.
accessories at Truck World.
So
or
they're gonna
something.
they're gonna go out like we would and call, bedliner people and say,
Right.
what does it
You can buy
cost?
Truck World, you can buy those accessories at Truck World or something at a reasonable.
Well, that's what he's providing to us now. I have a legal question, pursuant to this bid. The bid was submitted for extended cab trucks. And two of the vendors that replied with quad cab trucks. They're not the same vehicle that was advertised for. Don Johnson provided a bid for a quad cab truck, which is a double cab four-door. Extended cab vehicle is just a cab and a half that may or may not have smaller doors. So my legal question is, this is not meeting the bid specs.
There is no, I mean, I guess this is definitive enough, but typically, you know, there is no magic language. I guess here, it's fairly specific enough that.
And if there's recourse?
That, I guess your question is, does that disqualify the bid?
Did you want to take, that is, but we didn't advertise for a two-door truck or a four-door truck. And that's replied is four-door trucks. Now, myself and others would say, well, they we advertised for an extended cab, but they're giving us a quad cab at a reasonable rate. Do I take the upgrade of that? But procedurally, as a legal question, as far as advertising for the bid and being fair across the board, one of the other higher bidders did provide a bid for an extended cab truck. We do get into a little gray area of what is the definition of extended cab versus a quad cab. And so...
You answered your own question.
And so there I'm getting into more specificity needed in this bidding process.
I got a question. Do you know if the quad cabs are comparable in price to the extended cabs? Or the extended cab versus the four doors? Do you know if they're, the reason I ask that is because it's very difficult to get extended cabs anymore. Everybody's coming out with these four-door pickups. So I would imagine it's not an item they have very many of. So I guess the question is, are they comparable in price? Or do we know that?
Well, the Chevrolet truck, that one is an extended cab. And the different price, it's $3,000-$4,000.
Less?
More.
More for the extended cab?
Yes.
Yeah. That's my feeling, is that we're just going to run into a situation where they just cost more because the availability.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, Don Johnson is providing a quad cab as the low bid without the accessories added to it. We don't know how much the accessories are on the next low bid of, that was included in their bid. So these bids are not apple and apple that we were receiving. And so we're saying take the low bid that doesn't have the accessories, and then you factor in what you could buy as an accessory. Then the next low bid includes those accessories. And so we have some legal questions again on doing this.
You can always reissue it.
I'm not.
Reject all.
I'm not.
I'll see you guys later.
I'm not really advocating for that. I'm advocating for two things.
For the record, Mr. Wells is excusing himself.
I have an 8 o'clock appointment with
Another
clients, and
appointment.
this is
Just for the record.
Good luck.
Thank you.
I'm hoping.
My two comments are, one, I want clarifications, specificity on these bids that go out. You did a fair job on the checklist, but there's, as I've already pointed out, there's some conflict, if you will, as far as what's submitted and what was accepted. The other thing is, I want these things really marketed out, submitted to across the country. If you reach to Garland, that's fine. Just take them across the country. I don't think my other personal experience is, I don't think there's a whole lot of room on these vehicles much anymore. So I don't think that if we rebid it, we're gonna necessarily, expect to save that much. So I'm not advocating to rebid at this time. My comments are for future consideration. Am I clear on my comments?
Yes,
I'll
sir.
be glad to expand.
Yes.
It's not negative, it's just my input to you to hunt that dog hunter harder.
I make a motion to go with staff's recommendation on this purchase. With the is it Don Johnson?
I'll second that.
With the provision that, you know, you have to have the budget for being able to buy the accessories.
No, separate.
Separate in this. And I still bring up the need for running boards on a half-ton pickup.
Yeah, you have to have that.
Why?
Huh?
On a half-ton pickup?
No.
Half-ton pickup, six-cylinder?
Yeah, you're right.
I'll make this deal with you. You get those trucks in here, I'm 72, if I can get in that truck comfortable without running boards, we don't need them. If I need the running boards, I will come back here and I'll tell everybody that we need running boards.
Yes, sir, I will.
Thank you.
I can't even do my own trouble. I know, I'm just.
I'm challenging you.
Enough said. There's been a motion made, actually, the motion was made by Mr. Houston, so he needs to add that into the motion, since it's his motion, what you're recommending.
I'll agree to add that, if you got all that, Daisy.
Are we clear? There's been a second by Mr. Avalos. Are all those in favor?
Aye.
We are, thank you. Well, I'm glad we got those new trucks.
Without running boards.
Without running. Move to item number 14, consider and approve the financial reports for October, November, and December. Mr. Gomez?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. You have first the revenue and expense report for October, and as you can see, we're at 7.53%. We collected $697,871 in revenue from a budget of $9,265,841, and we spent $489,074.81. We have, at this point, received more revenue than what we spent for the month of October. Pages 2 to 12 gives you detail on the revenues and the expenditures. I don't know if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to try and answer them. On page 13, you have the budget and revenue expense collected for the debt service fund. And the debt service fund for October, we had collected $44,331 on a $2,339,584 budget. We had spent $28,803, or had received $15,528 in revenue more than we had spent. So we're okay as far as October is concerned. And again, the following pages give you the detail on the revenue and expense. If there are no questions, we can go to November.
That's just, my understanding, that's just for the first month of the fiscal year. That's just the first month of the fiscal year.
Yes, sir.
First quarter? We talk about October.
This is for the first month of the fiscal year.
October only.
Yes, sir.
Right, not the quarter.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, I'm over that.
Thank you.
The November revenue and expense is a year-to-date as of November. It includes October and November. And the revenue collected there was $1,342,924. Expense was $1,418,814.84. We had spent more than we collected by $75,890. And as far as the revenue is concerned, we are running a little behind. As expected though, during this time of the year, as far as revenue, we start collecting most of the revenue during the summer months when it's busy. But actually starting with spring break, that will go up. Pages 2 to 12 are the details on the revenue and expense. I'm not sure if you have any questions as far as that's concerned.
So in November, we've spent more than we took in.
That's correct.
It's of the beginning of the fiscal year.
Yes, sir.
Understood.
That is for October and November.
October and November, that's where we are up to at this date. So next we'll be getting December.
That's correct. As far as November, on page 13, you have again your debt service fund. Shows $717,839.59 in revenue, with expenses of $280,055.61 as far as expenses are concerned. So at this point in November, we're over by $437,783.98. But of course, we still haven't paid the bonds. And once we start paying the bonds, it'll show up as far as the expenses are concerned.
Is that still covering October and November?
Yes,
Still covering October and November?
that's correct.
Thank you.
In December, that is for the 3 months, October, November, and December, and we have collective revenue as far as $1,959,720.59 against a budget of $9,265,841. We spent $2,209,810.04. We have spent more than we collected by $250,089.45. Again, that is pretty typical as far as the year is concerned. You have more expenditures. They'll kind of taper off later as we start collecting more revenue during the busy months. And again, page 2 to 12 gives you the details of revenue and expenditures. I'm not sure if you have any questions. In looking at some of these, the budget balance on some of the accounts show that it's an overdraft, but it's really not. The biggest overdraft that we actually have is in a couple of accounts where the postage either was not budgeted or wasn't sufficiently budgeted. But the other ones that show a negative is just that the encumbrances need to be adjusted. We've over-encumbered as far as the balance is concerned when you compare that to the budget.
But on that particular one you just mentioned, that one was for lab. How does that work? I mean, they budgeted $100, but they wound up spending double that.
They spend more than that. That has a lot to do with the reports that they send out.
These are not.
I'm not sure what was budgeted last year.
These are not regular reports. Was it like extra testing they had to do or something? Is that what drives that up?
I couldn't very well tell you that. I'm going to assume that's what it was.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I noticed that on that one stood out, and the sale of materials for $1,700 over budget.
Yeah, I need to go back at last year and compare it and see what happened and look at it at this year, and probably make some adjustments. But we'll wait a couple more months to see what the pattern will be as far as the postage is concerned. Again, some of these other accounts that are over budget, it's not that they're over budget. There's still plenty of money in their budget. It's just that they put more money as far as the encumbrance in the purchase order than what's already been spent. Okay. And so we need to decrease their PO to put it monthly.
Okay.
On page, on number 13, as far as for December, the debt service fund, we collected $985,368.88, and we have spent $291,955.05. We will be having some expenditures as far as the bonds are concerned within the next month or so. So that will show a little bit more as far as expenses are concerned. The following pages give you the details on the revenue by accounts and expenditures If you have any questions, we'll answer. That concludes my presentation for revenue and expense report.
Okay, motion made by D. Wells for approval,
Second?
second by Mr. Avalos. All those in favor?
Aye.
There are any opposed, none, motion carries, thank you. Moving to 15, consider and approve investment report for quarter ending December 31st, 2017.
Yes, sir. I do apologize to the board. I gave you a report that I just received from Valley View. I just received it on Monday. I haven't been here. I was been at a conference, but we did the report in-house. I gave it to you so that if you have some time later, you can compare it with the report that's in the package. Of course, Valley View's report is a lot prettier, I guess you would say that. It has basically the same information. What I am, I guess, looking at doing is just doing the report in-house. I don't see a need for Valley View to continue doing the report. I'm not sure what it is they're charging, but there's got to be some sort.
The motion made by Mr. D. Wells for approval.
Well, I'm not necessarily to approve, because I'm more inclined to table this. You've given us an amended report from what was in our packet, correct? But
Well,
you're saying that I'm supporting you doing it and not contracting it out,
Okay.
doing it in-house.
Yeah, I guess you could say, as far as the difference in the report that Valley View gave us, that I gave you, and what the report that we did, basically has to do with information that we provided Valley View. They requested information at the beginning of the month. At that time, we did not have any reconciled balances. As you can see on the balance, on the report that we did, it shows the transactions. For example, on the first page, it shows the statement balances of 9/30 of 2017. Those balances were the balances that Valley View had on their last quarterly report. What we did is adjusted that for October 1st, because there were outstanding balances or unreconciled balances at that time that we took care of. But Valley View did not have that information because of the time that they requested the report. So my report for the end of for December 31st includes reconciled balances. Theirs does not.
So we would take, yours is more up-to-date, that's included in our packet, over what they provided to last Monday.
That's correct.
Okay, so then I'm comfortable approving staff's report as in our packet.
Motion made by D. Wells for approval as presented.
Second.
Second by Mr. Houston. All those in favor?
Aye.
There are none opposed, motion carries. Moving to 16, consider and review expenditures for January 1 through 5, 2018.
I've gone through a lot of them. I have some questions. I'm not going to take up the time of board members and staff at this time. I'm going to reiterate again that I would like to see sharper pencils. I'd like to really see more solicitation of purchases or different prices on some of these things. One thing, and I think Mr. Avalos mentioned it to me earlier, is that there's nothing on here really indicating who bought it. If we can do that, if it was a purchasing agent or a non-purchasing agent.
Can we break it down into departments where the purchases come from?
Actually, all the purchases are going through the purchasing agent. Whenever anybody requests an item, regardless of what it is, we send it to the purchasing agent. He'll look through it, and if it's a sole source vendor, such as the National Meter and Automation, we've looked through those meters, and they're the only ones that sell the meters that we currently have. So to replace any meters, we have to buy them through them.
I understand.
But anything else?
Then let me ask you on page 2, Valley Action Air, We spent $1,690 for a split, level service for somewhere, and then, for the warehouse, and then we had a service call in there. What was done to see if that was a competitive price, Mr. Purchasing Agent?
This one, it's Orlando's room.
I'm on page 2,
Orlando's room.
and it's the Valley Action-Air LLC. Somebody bought a mini split for a service room in the warehouse.
Yeah, on this one, I was not involved, but after the last meeting, we talked to the managers. We let them know they can't do things like in the past, right? They need to involve me on every purchase. For this mini split, I don't recall.
You answered my question on that. You answered your question on that, but I'm seeing a number. We bought something from Gabriel's Garage Doors, repair the doors of the warehouse. We're buying caliche from Los Fresnos all the time, Los Fresnos Construction. I'm seeing that. Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that we have a agenda item on our next meeting to discuss the purchasing agent's duties, responsibility, and authorization. And let's get this ship righted. No disrespect, or I'm trying to help you here. I want to identify exactly what you're supposed to be doing, and that you're in charge of all the purchase. I think it doesn't have to be executive session, because I'm not going to be discussing him as a personnel. It's only the duties and responsibilities and authority. That's a legal question related to the purchasing agent.
Mr. Wells, at the last meeting, after the last meeting, I did send out an email to all the managers, and to that effect, that they needed to go through him, that all purchases needed to go through him. This one here, the Valley Action Air, that was probably done, I'm almost 99% sure that was done by the IT staff that we have on a contract basis, since he was taking care of a lot of these issues in-house. And he normally goes through his company, and we reimburse them. They bill us.
But it's for our property, for our service at the warehouse.
Yes.
Well, there's two items there. One, $90 is
Service
for the
call.
warehouse, the AC service call, and then the $1,600 is for the main office here, where they separated the.
Well, I don't see how our contractor could be taken and using his vendor and billing us for improvements or repairs to our facilities. I'm all fine behind the, I'm fine with all this being behind us, but I'd like to reinforce again in this board to be clear on what the responsibilities and duties of the person.
We will make it clear to him that he needs to go through.
I think it's incumbent upon the board to go ahead and be clear on that. I don't want to be speaking just for myself.
Yes.
I'd like for the board to give input on this. I'm not looking negatively upon this gentleman. I'm trying to help him with clarity.
I just want to make a clarification here on the first part that you were asking about splitters. That happened about a couple months ago, that we had planned to do that, separate the server from this particular room, and add an AC connection, like the duct units to it, because the server needs colder air. And that was done about a couple months ago, and it's barely coming out, and we pay it, so.
I can understand. I don't have, that was only an example. You sufficiently answered my question. Thank you. Move to approve.
First one, approval by D. Wells.
Second.
Second by Mr. Houston. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
They are. That concludes the agenda for the evening. Meeting adjourned at 8:03 PM.